Welcome to Podcasts Plus Football, your data-first briefing where we deconstruct the beautiful game. Okay, so let's get right into it. Today, we're going to break down one of the most effective tactical systems in the game right now, the box midfield. And we're going way beyond just the eye test. We're going to look at the theory, the structure, and the hard data that proves why it's so dominant on the pitch. So you might be wondering, what was the problem that demanded this kind of geometric solution? Well, for years, even the best teams were getting absolutely stifled by opponents using these super intense, coordinated high-pressing systems. The issue wasn't a lack of talent. It was more like a structural puzzle. How do you build an attack and find any space when there's, well, no space to be found? The answer was to literally change the shape of the game. And that's where the box midfield comes in. Now, this isn't some static formation you see on a team sheet before the match. No. It's a fluid 2+2 shape that a team builds when they have the ball. Its whole purpose is to overload the middle of the park, forcing the other team's press to collapse inward. And when they do that, bingo, you open up all this valuable space to exploit everywhere else. To really get why this is so powerful, we need to pop the hood and look at its core components. There are really three interconnected pillars that give this system its strength and its authority on the pitch. The real genius here is how these three pillars work in perfect sync. The positional overload is what secures possession. The inverted fullback is the key that unlocks that overload. And when you put them together, they establish what's called rest defense integrity, which is just a fancy way of saying you have a defensive structure ready to go even while you're attacking. It means your team is perfectly set up to counterpress the second you lose the ball. Let's zoom in on that catalyst for a second, the inverted fullback. You see players like Joshua Kimmich or Oleksandr Zinchenko doing this masterfully. They drift inside from the flank and basically become an extra central midfielder. Instantly, your team has a crucial numbers advantage right in the engine room of the pitch. It's this level of tactical detail that we love to get into in every single briefing. So if you appreciate this kind of deep dive analysis, do us a favor and make sure you're subscribed for more. But look, how do we prove any of this tactical theory actually works? Well, that's when we move from the drawing board to the data. To quantify this system's success, analysts use a specific set of metrics, mostly from FBref, that translate what's happening on the pitch into objective, verifiable numbers. First up, we've got the progressive pass. This isn't just any old pass. The definition is really strict. It has to significantly move the ball towards the other team's goal. This metric is basically the language of playmakers. It quantifies their ability to hit those line-breaking passes that just tear a defense apart. And the other side of that coin is the progressive carry. It's the same principle, measuring forward momentum, but this time it's with the ball at a player's feet. This is the signature of a dynamic, line-breaking player, identifying guys who can just puncture a defensive line with a powerful run, not just with a pass. Now, at the team level, you can basically forget about raw possession stats. They don't tell the whole story. The metric that really, truly matters is field tilt. And why is that? Because it measures where a team is controlling the ball. A high field tilt score proves you aren't just knocking it around at the back. You are dominating the game where it counts. And this metric right here, this is what captures the defensive benefit perfectly. PPDA, or passes per defensive action, is all about pressing intensity. A low score is what you want. It means your team lets the opponent make very few passes before you swarm them and win the ball back. This is the direct statistical proof of a successful rest defense structure in action. So now that we have our data toolkit, let's see how modern scouts and analysts actually use it. This is where we move beyond a subjective eye test and start to profile players with cold, hard data, which can reveal value that other people might totally miss. This brings us to what some analysts call the De Bruyne axiom. Think about it. A 95% pass completion rate sounds amazing, right? But it's pretty much meaningless if all those passes are safe and going sideways or backwards. The real value is in progressive actions. That's just the sum of progressive passes and carries. That number quantifies a player's actual intent to get forward and cause problems. Okay, so take a look at this table with me. It shows exactly how we can use this data to differentiate the roles inside that box midfield. In that top row, you see the profile for a deep-lying playmaker. See how they have a really high ratio of progressive passes to carries? They're the ones dictating play from deep. But then, in the second row, you have the dynamic box-to-box player. their ratio is way closer to 1-to-1, or they might even have more carries than passes. By looking at this ratio, scouts can build a balanced midfield with players who complement each other perfectly. It's a really powerful tool. And it gets me thinking, which current players do you think perfectly fit these deep-lying playmaker or dynamic box-to-box data profiles? Go ahead and drop their names in the comments below. I'd love to see who you come up with. All right, let's scale this up. Individual player profiles are one huge piece of the puzzle, for sure, but the real test is whether we can use these same metrics to prove that the entire tactical system is effective at the team level. This slide here, this gives us the quantitative blueprint for a truly elite team. As this table shows, a dominant box midfield team is aiming for two key benchmarks. First, a field tilt of over 65%. That's your hard proof of sustained territorial control deep in the other team's half. Second, you want a PPDA score below 9.0. That confirms a relentless, immediate, and effective counterpress. Hitting both of these numbers isn't just good, it is the statistical signature that the whole system is firing on all cylinders. So when it's all said and done, it really just boils down to this simple formula. A high field tilt plus a low PPDA equals validated tactical dominance. When you see a team putting up these kinds of numbers week in and week out, you are looking at the quantitative signature of a truly elite, centrally controlled football team. And by the way, if you find this level of data-driven analysis valuable, please consider supporting the channel through Patreon or the join button. It's what allows us to keep building these deep dive briefings for you. But of course, elite analysis doesn't just stop with these raw numbers. The next frontier is all about adjusting for context. Top analysts have to isolate a player's true line-breaking ability from their team's overall style. I mean, think about it. A player on a top team naturally gets more chances to make progressive actions. The real skill is identifying the players who show that same intent, even when they're in less dominant systems. Which brings us to a final, really fundamental question. We've seen the system needs a deep distributor, a dynamic carrier, and an intelligent inverted fullback to really work. But if you had to pick just one, which of those player profiles is the single most critical component for unlocking the full potential of the box midfield? Let us know what you think.